Welcome to Saturday Morning Retro, episode 33. Podcast focused on retro gaming and giving ourselves an excuse to play our collection. Before we start the show, we want to thank all of our wonderful fans who have supported us. And if you want to show support for the Rated G Network, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/RatedG4Gamers. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Rated G for Gamers. And finally, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. We appreciate all the love. I'm your host, Dave Rotino, and this is my co-host, Dan, the podcaster formerly known as Classic Robinson.
Salutations, my friend.
Salutations. How you feeling, Dan?
It's summer. It's officially summer. It's hot. It's muggy. It's time to wear shorts. I'm not gonna lie. I was holding out. I got a new pair. I got a lot of new Jordans, and I didn't want to wear shorts because they're like high tops. You don't wear shorts with those.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. I am.
Put them away.
I am. As soon as the weather gets as soon as it gets above 50, I'm shorts all day. Forget about it. I love it. I love it. Oh, it's so nice. It's so nice.
This dude he said above 50. It'd be 52 degrees, and he'd be the guy with a tank top.
Dude,
short.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge to go outside of the corner store to pick up a can of Snapple in like one of those little like Cinnabon things, right? And I'm like, yeah, I could do it. It's not that bad outside, right? Then you go outside and you're like, this may have been a bad idea. But I've done it. I've done it in like 30-degree weather. I've rocked the shorts and ran to the corner. I made it happen.
Well, listen, I don't understand this, and I'll never understand this. So don't try to explain it, because nothing you can say will make me understand why people wear shorts and hoodies at the same time. It doesn't make any sense. Is it cold up at the top and warm at the bottom? Like, it doesn't make any sense why you would wear shorts in a hoodie. I'm sorry. I will
tell you. I will tell you why. And I know you said there's nothing that can convince you that this is a good idea, but there's one thing you didn't think about. Fashion. Okay. Just being fashionable, right? You're wearing some low tops or like some boat shoes, right? You get those really small socks where you can't see them, but they feel good on the feet. Get a nice pair of shorts, you get a t-shirt, you rock your favorite hoodie. Boom. There you go. No. You got a little going out look on the evening time. You want to walk on the boardwalk down by the beach, right? But it's a little bit nippy outside. You throw on the hoodie a little bit, and it's boom, instant fashion.
No. This is what I want. I want somebody to wear some Timberland boots or construction boots, whatever you prefer. Your boots, your heavy jeans, okay, and a wife beater. I want somebody to wear that. That's what I want somebody to wear.
Heavy jeans.
Yeah. Cold down and the opposite of shorts and a hoodie. That's what I want. That's what I want to see somebody.
All right. I'm sure some people have rocked that before, but yeah, right. Man. Yeah, well, it's firmly summer. Right. We'll say that.
All right, Dave. We have an awesome show this month. I know we're a little late, and that's my fault. Life gets in the way. But we have an awesome show this month. We're going to talk about NCIS for the 3DS. Yes, I know. An actual licensed game. Is it good? We'll let you know later in the show. And we're also going to talk about WCW Mayhem. But before we get into any of that stuff, we always start Saturday Morning Retro with this time in gaming history. In June 23rd, 1996, the illustrious, controversial, or maybe the greatest of all time, depending on who you talk to, N64 was released in Japan.
Yeah. It was kind of wild. Originally, dubbed the Ultra 64, right?
I remember that.
All right.
I remember the Ultra 64.
You could see that in the arcade versions of Killer Instinct, and I also believe Cruisin' USA. In the beginning, they had the little Ultra 64 logo. It was based off of, Silicon Graphics, which was one of the premier computer graphics companies at the time. Then Nintendo penned them ultimately to make their graphics chip for it, and went from Ultra 64 to Nintendo 64. And I think you're right. Very, very divisive. Some people say it's the best console ever. Some people say it's the worst. One of the worst. It's got a lot of...
People say it's the best because they have nostalgia for arguably, and it is arguably, the best Mario game of all time and the two best Zelda games of all time, right?
They did...
Like, for the... Yeah, like Ocarina of Time was like coined the best Zelda game until Breath of the Wild, and now Tears of the Kingdom, right?
Right.
So for 20 years, the best Zelda game of all time came out on N64. Until the Galaxy, until the Galaxy games came out, / Odyssey. Mario 64 was like the best 3D Mario game ever. Right. So for at least 10 to 20 years, it had the best game in the franchise, 3D wise, ever. Yeah. So that's why I think people look fondly on it. And it's first mainstream controller to have a stick on it, right?
First mainstream successful controller. Yeah, that's right. I know the Saturn had a control stick thing that came with Knights, but I think that came out after the N64 came out. And we know that there were other companies, and one notable company that tried to sue Nintendo over it, who apparently had a patent on the analog sticks, and they made an analog controller or whatever. But it wasn't successful. Nobody cared about it. So it doesn't really like count. I think in the you would have to give Nintendo the credit, I think, for the first commercially successful analog stick controller, which is good. They made the jump to 3D with all of their franchises pretty successfully, right? Donkey Kong, Mario, Zelda. They were really good for what they were, especially at the time, compared to things like Bubsy and Earthworm Jim and Castlevania, all the other companies who were trying to take their franchises and turn them into first-person or third-person 3D action adventure games, and a lot of them just didn't do it right. They didn't know how to handle the camera, they didn't know how to handle the controls. Like, there's a lot of it's a big learning curve in that generation. That, like, 6th generation was kind of weird, or 5th generation, I should say. It was kind of weird. And Smash Brothers, first Smash Brothers on the console, first
Mario Kart ever. I'm arguing best Mario Kart. I loved it. I still love it.
Sure. First Mario Party came out on the N64. Lots of big firsts.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, well, listen, happy birthday. I don't even know how many years this has been. 96? It's like 27, 28?
27 years, yeah, because it's 2023 currently. So yeah, it'd be 27 years as of 2 days ago. As of this recording, minus 2 days would be the 27th anniversary, which is crazy to think about.
It can get into a lot of nightclubs now because it's over 25.
It could rent a car, too.
It can rent a car, yeah. All right, water. Dave, did you get any good gaming pickups this month?
Yes, I'm happy to say I'm back in the swing of things, Dan. I got some amazing, not just good, not just great, I got amazing 10 out of 10 pickups. And most of these are sealed, by the way. 4 out of the 5 games that I got are factory H-Seam sealed, which I'm very, very happy about to pick up. And those games include, and all of these are for the Wii, so I'm not going to say it for every game, but picked up Mad World, Muramasa the Demon Blade, House of the Dead Overkill, One Piece Unlimited Adventure, and Ark Rise Fantasia. And very happy to have these in the collection. They are, they're quite pricey, sealed. So picking these up was pretty good. They're even like complete, they're worth a little bit of money. Not that I'm in it for the money, but it's nice to find things out in the wild that are kind of, have a little bit of value to them, especially sealed. Now I have the option
to the ego. Yeah. Boost to the ego.
Exactly, right? It's a nice little find, right? Hunting is half the joy of it, right? Getting out there and getting in the trenches and making the trip, and you don't know if there's going to be something good or absolutely nothing. We've had a lot of bus trips before, but sometimes you find some gold in the wild. It feels good. And I have the option to open them or not. I may end up cracking them open and playing them. So, how about you, Dan? What did you pick up?
All right. I'm going to add a couple of things that aren't on the list on the notes, but I did pick up Starfield, the controller.
Oh,
Special edition controller.
Yes,
so
yes.
I got that.
very nice.
I would have picked up the headphones, but the headphones were sold out. And to be honest, I'm not. I probably would. I don't use the Dual Sense or the PS5 headphones either, right? Even though they have like HD audio, I do use them every now and then, but I don't use them as much. So I'm not as bummed out that they're sold out. But I do want to get the watch for Starfield. So hopefully in September.
Does look badass.
Yes, does look badass.
And you can get it separately without the special edition.
I don't know, but if I can, that'd be great.
Yeah, I feel like it's only going to be part of the special edition, sadly, but yeah, it does look awesome.
We'll see. I did get Final Fantasy 16 the deluxe edition because it comes with like a cloth map. That's awesome, and the steel bookcase. I honestly, the map is cool, and they do put the game in the regular case inside, but I kind of like it when they have the steel bookcase, the map in like an art book in it instead of like the regular PS5 case, because I hate to have the option of which one do I use to put on the shelf. Just give me the steel book and give me like an art book. I always like it when we get art books.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that.
Some things I got earlier in the month. Oceanhorn 2 for the Switch. Got that from Limited Run. That came in. Neo Geo Pocket Color Volume 2, also from Limited Run.
Nice.
For the Switch. Got that in. Frogger Beyond for the GameCube. Actually, underrated game. Not as bad as you may think for those 3D Frogger games for back in the day. May use it for Saturday Morning Retro one of these days coming up.
Okay.
All right, you know about that. Casper Spirit Dimensions for the PS2. Street Racing Syndicate for the Xbox. Divinity 2 for the 360, and Cursed Crusade for the 360.
Oh, so, I don't know that last game.
All RPGs for the 360.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sort of. I want to say almost cult classic. There are like a lot of fans for these games, but they weren't reviewed that well, right? They were like, in the 6, 7. They were in the Order 1886 range of being reviewed at the time.
Right.
So it's but they have a lot of people online that actually that really like these games.
Sure.
So
sure. Divinity is definitely very solid. Yeah, Divinity I know is a solid franchise, and it's probably the least represented franchise on Xbox and Xbox 360 is the RPG, specifically the Japanese RPG. They had didn't really get a lot of support in Japan. There was a couple, they did like Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon. They got the Hironobu Sakaguchi from Final Fantasy fame over and Akira Toriyama to do Blue Dragon. Didn't do amazingly well. They were okay. They were okay to pretty good, but yeah. Nice to find out about these other RPGs.
All right, Dave. It's that time of the month. Triple R, remaster, remake, or recycle.
Oh, it's been a while, Ben.
It's been a while. I mean, it's been we do it every other month.
Yeah, it's still a while.
So Dave, if you had to pick a game that you would either remaster, remake, or recycle an idea from that game, which game would you pick this month?
So, in honor of the upcoming Twisted Metal TV show on Peacock, I am choosing Twisted Metal 2. Now, I love Twisted Metal 2. One of the best in the franchise. Definitely better than the first one. It still had, I think it was David Jaffe, I think was the creator, or David K. I think David Jaffe was the creator behind it. He left after number 2. So 3 and 4 were not done by his crew. I think they were done by 989 Studios, I think. And they were okay. They didn't really innovate that much. But Twisted Metal 2, great game. So you may be wondering why I'm putting Twisted Metal 2 up. Is it a remake? Is it a remaster? I said no. Doing the lesser used recycle. And we don't have a lot of these. And I was thinking because they're kind of expanding out the universe with the TV show. So it's not just going to be car combat for the whole entire series because how do you have any sort of dialogue and character growth just by running around in cars? You got to have some like personal interaction, right? Either like, you kind of talk it out and then you fight, or you talk it out and you kind of get some exposition out there. Like, so they're kind of building a little bit on the world. And I thought what would be cool would be to take those characters, right, and remove the car combat element, but keep the universe, keep the backstories and all that, and then turn it into like a third-person brawler, right? Like a Final Fight Streetwise, but good. So take all the elements, all the backdrop, right, all the kind of gritty, character development and whatnot, all the great backstories, right? Take all of that stuff, but change the gameplay element and turn it into third person action game, right? And you could choose from a couple of people who kind of like team up to go up against Calypso or whatever. He'd be the final bad guy, and then you can go up against like Sweet Tooth could be a boss or whatever, and you could sprinkle in all the other characters and maybe add some like extra jobbers in there. You could set up some like maybe some gangs or clans, right? So you're going up against like these clans, and then the head of the clan could be like Sweet Tooth or like Darkseid or something like that. So I don't know. I was just thinking that could like kind of be a cool idea.
Okay. All right. I could see that. Mm-hmm. So I would pick Mortal Kombat Special Forces, and I want a remake of this.
Oh.
Okay? Like, I want a remake in the vein of all the Resident Evil remakes, the Zelda remake, right? Like, I want a complete remake of this game and add nothing but a bunch of new stuff to make it awesome, because I think the idea is awesome, and I don't want to recycle it. I want to use the ideas that they had back, when did this game come out? Like in 2000, so 23 years ago. Use those same ideas and modernize them for today and make it better, right? Because it was a game based, I mean, look at the premise. If I tell you, hey, we're going to have a standalone game with Jax. He has the robotic arms and stuff. Because remember, he was in the military, I believe.
Yes,
or
with
some special.
He was with
Sonya.
With Sonya Blade. That's right.
And we're gonna do a sort of like a third person action adventure game with Jax in it. That sounds awesome. The execution is the thing that wasn't awesome. Yep.
Right. Same with Mortal Kombat Mythologies, which was like
which I did say is a remake a few months ago.
Right. The ideas are great. The core ideas are great. The setup is great. I think you're right. The executions they totally missed the mark.
I mean, I understand they wanted to do something different, because at that point in 2000, we were sort of past the prime for like Mortal Kombat games, the original Mortal Kombat games, because at that point we just got maybe a year or two prior to that, like
MK4.
Ultimate Mortal Kombat, and then MK4 as well.
I think MK4 was out when Special Forces was out, or was just about to come out.
So it kind of makes like I want a Jax Special Forces game just made in the mind for today, with flushed out full story. You don't have to add fighting scenes to it at all, right? Because you have Mortal Kombat for that. So just flush out his backstory, even, right? But he has metal arms, so it's not really a backstory. It's in the Mortal Kombat realm of the fighting. It's just flushing out a separate story. I'm okay with that. Just give me a good story with Jax. And I think Mortal Kombat, they have the characters to do that. They just, and I don't know if they're gonna try anything new anytime soon, especially with Mortal Kombat 1 coming out and looking awesome and people really excited about it. But I would love for them to branch out and do separate games in different game styles, right? I like to remember in the mid 2000s we got Mortal Kombat games that had kart racing, and Tetris was like
they did bonuses in the like the PS2 era stuff. Yep.
I would like to see them branch out and do something like that. That would be cool. So I think I covered all. Maybe Shaolin Monks. Right?
I was going to say Shaolin Monks is the one everyone's clamoring for. They definitely want.
All right, so that's going to be my next. That's going to be my next triple R game. Shaolin Monks. So I'll hit all three. All right. So when we take a break, when we come back, We're going to dive deep into our backlog and talk about NCIS for the 3DS and WCW Mayhem. And we're back. All right, Dave, let's dive deep into our backlog and talk about NCIS for the 3DS and WCW Mayhem. Mm-hmm. Let me go first, as we always do on the show.
Oh, I'm excited.
I know, because you know nothing about the show or the game.
I know the show from all the little meme clips that are online.
You know the show exists, but you don't really know anything about the show.
I mean, I know some of the characters, sure, but okay, yeah, I'm going in a little blind. So
we're going to talk about NCIS 3DS, not to be confused with the NCIS game that came out for the PS3 and Xbox 360.
Yeah, of course not.
Because I was confused because it is a totally different story, totally different game. Because those games came out in October of 2011, when the 3DS version came out on September 18th of 2012. So almost a year apart. Made by Ubisoft, published by Ubisoft, developed by Ubisoft Shanghai, which I don't know if it still exists or not. So it was released for 3DS, PS3, Xbox 360, Wii, and Windows. But like I said, those console versions of those games are a different story, completely different. So I don't know why they grouped them in together. I guess just because they have the same name. The official name is NCIS, based on the TV series, which is terrible. It's a terrible name.
Why not just go NCIS? I don't know, the case of the missing woman or something. Like label it like they would one of the episodes. That's
because the game is 4 episodes sort of long, right?
Okay, sure.
That's how they, well, at least for the 3DS version. Again, everything that I'm saying here goes only for the 3DS version, not the PS3, 360 Wii version, which I am now enticed to play since it's a different story. And also, the console versions have voice acting in them, not from the actual actors themselves.
Yeah.
They do have voice acting in them, but the 3DS version, you have to read, and you do a lot of reading.
That all makes sense, right? You could potentially see the voice acting in the 3DS game, but I don't want to say this is a budget title per se, but I feel like, that's a little bit hardware pushing, and B, it costs a lot of money to get voice actors in to do 4 new episodes, right? Feels like a lot. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's broken up into 4 episodes. You call it 4 chapters. You call it whatever you want. 4 different worlds. It's 4 episodes based. Right. That's how they structure it. So this is an adventure, point-and-click adventure game. I did play it on the new 3DS XL, which is my primary 3DS XL. Like I said, it's broken up into 4 episodes. They do have, at least for the first 2 episodes, the opening scene or the opening music of the theme for the TV show. I think that was a missed opportunity on the 3DS. Why didn't they have the music and opening cutscene on all the different episodes? I thought that would have been kind of awesome. But they sort of gamified it, where on the first episode, you get the theme song. The second episode, you get the theme song, but I don't want to spoil anything, but it is NCIS, so you are on a ship. I'll put it that way. Yeah. So the second episode, you are on a ship, so they do theme it to you on a ship, and then the third and the fourth, you don't get the music at all, which kind of sucks.
Oh, weak.
They should have had it complete. Again, I don't know how the console versions are, but they should have had the complete theme song, opening cutscene with every episode opening, if they're going to theme it as 4 different episodes. So NCIS, if you don't know the TV show, pretty much the Navy criminal investigating, services. They are the police for the Navy. And in every episode, someone's either dead or missing, just like Law and Order.
There you go.
And they have to solve the case. So this is no different here. Every episode, somebody dies, and you have to investigate and figure out who the killer is, right? You do play as a new rookie agent. You don't you're a rookie, so you're not totally an agent, and you're on a probationary period. And they put you on the #1 team, which is Team Gibbs. If you know the show, you know Gibbs is the main character of the show, even though he has since sort of taken a step back because he is up there in age. He's in the 70s, and the show is now in its 21st season, I should say. Mm-hmm. So these characters, if you watch the show now, only McGee and the director are still on the show. Everybody else has since left or retired. This is from 2012. So back when the show was only 10 seasons in, now it's 21 seasons.
Is this the one with Joey Lawrence? Is he in this?
No. I don't know if he ever played a character, a good guy, bad guy, maybe.
I thought he was
but no, he's not. Joey Lawrence is not in this game. But you know who is in this game? And this will tie into what we were talking about before we started recording. So a guy named by David Keith McCullum, he's an actor. I mean, he's like 90 years old. He is sort of retired or semi-retired, at least on the show. He's not a mainstay on the show anymore. He plays a guy named Ducky who does all the autopsies. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, he was a music composer in the 70s before he was an actor.
Oh, shit.
And one of his music compilations that he made, Dr. Dre sampled for the next episode on Dr. Dre's second album or official album. Well, no, I think that was his third album, 2001, The Chronic 2001.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow,
that's a fun fact. That's a fun fact I did not know. I always thought Ducky was just an actor because I've seen him on Matlock. He played the bad guy on Matlock a long time ago, right? Mm-hmm. But his most famous character is Ducky on... And look, I even call him Ducky. His name is David. His name is Ducky or Donald, but they call him Ducky on the show as a nickname. Mm-hmm. Did not know he's a music composer, and Dr. Dre sampled his song, so that's actually pretty cool.
Nice. The
gameplay, again, point and click adventure game. Mm-hmm. Somebody dies, you go to the scene of the crime, and now you have to pick different points in the crime scene, and it's all self-explanatory, to be honest, because it's a dual screen where the top of the screen you see the crime scene, at the bottom of the screen they sort of have like a grid to where you use your cursor to use your mouse, use the pointer to go around and click on different points of the crime scene to investigate, and you do find evidence. And by the way, I know you don't watch TV show, and TV show, it's semi-comedy too, because they have the little quirks, the humor in it. In a TV show, they have it in the game as well. And I know I'm kind of afraid to play the console versions because they have voice actors who aren't the actual actors on the show.
Yeah, it takes you out of it a little bit, right?
It takes you out a little bit. So the 3DS version, I can hear their voices as I read. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of, and you need to read, by the way. You need to read, and I'll tell you about why you need to read in a second. But I can hear their voices as I read the dialogue. Mm-hmm. Where you find certain things like the gun, or you'll find a piece of evidence and it has a fingerprint and you analyze it, you do have to put it in an evidence bag, and you do have to pick what needs to be tested on it, right? So, and that's based on the dialogue that you have. So if it has, if you see sort of like a partial print on a glass, and it puts it in an evidence bag, the graphic comes up, it's in an evidence bag. What does it need to be tested for? Obviously, it doesn't need to be tested for DNA. It needs to be tested for fingerprinting. And they give you options for what. So you do have to pay attention to the dialogue to say what it needs to be tested for. Now, there is no... If you give a wrong answer, it will highlight and say it's wrong. The more right answers you give and less wrong answers, you get like a higher score, I would assume. I don't care about scores, but it will tell you it's wrong, and you keep picking options until it's right. So it's not like
you can't fail the mission.
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's no really failing the mission, but the gamified part, the real part where you have to pay attention, is to interrogations, because when you interrogate someone, you get these are questions you're asking. These are the answers they're going to give. You can ask deeper questions. You can go into each question and ask like a sub question to that. And if they're lying, you can present evidence to prove they're lying, by the way. And it is annoying every time you pick something, like I go to evidence and I say, no, here's your fingerprint. And they say, nope, this is not why would you do that? That's dumb, rookie, right? We know they're lying about this. So you have to go to the right dialogue option and pick the right evidence to fit to prove they're lying. So that part is annoying to be called a dumb rookie. Like, are you dumb? Really? No, don't say that. Why would you tell them that? Right? And it will not progress until you pick the right one. Right. By the way, so you could sit here forever picking the wrong one, and they'll tell you, nope, this is wrong. And you have to have the right dialogue option for the right evidence for the right dialogue option. I can't just say, I got your fingerprint. No, I have to go to the dialogue option to where they say, I was never there. You can't prove I was there. I have your fingerprint. You were there, right? I can't use that in the beginning of my interrogation because it won't work. Because there's nothing, I'm not proving them wrong on anything, right? Because I just started the interrogation. So that part is kind of cool that you do. Also, later in the game, you do have to sort of solve puzzles to dissolve, to disarm bombs, which is another gamified portion. But they do give you a limited time, so you do have to memorize, and it's all about matching the colors. Right? In the different, they give you a circuit board and you have to match the colors in a certain amount of time, right? Red, green. No, you have to memorize red was over here. So green, blue. No, red. You remember, you would appreciate this. You love Super Mario Brothers 3. You remember the card game where you had to match the different items? Yep. Right? Yep. It's essentially that, except for you got 20 seconds.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know how that ties into the investigating portion, but it is.
Well, you got a bomb.
Gamified.
You got a bomb, right? You found out this person did it. They said they have a bomb. You're searching the area. There's a bomb. You have to defuse it, or we all die.
The bomb. Yeah. Okay.
We all die.
Certainly a creative way to do it. Yeah.
Another gamified portion. They do have shootout battle, gun battles, where you the top of the screen, you see people shooting at you. Bottom of the screen, they will have targets up that will last for like 3 to 4 seconds, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller. And you have to tap on it just in time to get like 100% accuracy, 50% accuracy, right? And everybody needs to get shot like 5 times, so you keep doing it. The thing that's annoying is the ducking, because they tell you at first, hey, you got to click here. If you don't see the prompt, they're going to shoot you. You're going to have to duck. But they keep having the prompt come up, duck. Yes, I know that. I know I have to duck. You don't have to tell me I have to duck. You tell me that in the beginning. Don't keep doing that. Let me get shot. Maybe I'll like make it gamified to where like, oh, you didn't duck in time, so you died. You got to try it again. Right? So there's no way to really fail except for the bomb portion, the puzzle bomb portion, to where they just tell you to try again. Right. They tell you to try again. So that part was kind of annoying. I wish I could sort of get shot and sort of die and have to do it again, right? But other than that, this game is pretty awesome. They have the music. They do have similar music in the game, because obviously there's no dialogue, so they don't have the theme song throughout the game, but they do have like mellow music towards, mellow background music to blend in as you read. That doesn't interfere with it at all. If you love NCIS like I do, is one of my favorite shows of all time, top 5 shows, I would say. You would really love this game. You would, because this is 4 episodes of a show that has 21 seasons, right? It's obviously over 200 episodes already. You would love this. You would love this. It's the only reason why I could deal with all of the reading, to be honest. Right? Because again, you have to read everything. You have to read dialogue because you have to catch people in lies.
Right.
And the only way to do that is to pay attention to the dialogue. And there's a lot of talking. I mean, this is RPG central without leveling up.
Yeah.
If you don't love NCIS, this is one of those. If you love the skin, then you love the game, right? I'm not a big RPG fan, but I love Mario RPG, right? I love Final Fantasy VII. I love Persona 5. I love those games, but you can't put any RPG in front of me because it's not going to work.
Right.
So if you're a point and click adventure fan, you would probably like this because it's like a murder mystery. But if you're an NCIS fan on top of that, that would make this game that much better. So,
okay,
I love the game personally.
Okay.
It was hard to find any Metacritic scores for the 3DS version, which, remember, is a different game than the console version.
Right.
So I'm not gonna quote the console version and Metacritic score because it doesn't count. It's a different game.
Wow, I'm surprised there weren't that many reviews of the game.
No, there are reviews of the game. I just they didn't tally them for a Metacritic score. For the most part, people hated this game.
Yeah.
This game got 4s, 5s. The highest rating I saw was a 6, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think IGN gave it like a 5. On Metacritic itself, there's from let me see, what outlet is this? This is from Nintendo Gamer. They gave it a 40. And honestly, I didn't read the review, so I don't even know if it's the 3DS version or the or if it's the console version. But this game didn't score that high. And again, I preface, if you love point and click adventure games and you love NCIS, you will dig this game, because I'm not a big point and click adventure game person. But because this is NCIS, I powered through it because I can hear their voices. I love the IP, and it's just 4 extra episodes of me catching a killer. I'm part of it. At the end, no matter what happens, I'm assuming no matter what happens, you get your badge and you become an agent, a part of the team for Team Gibbs. So, if you love NCIS, play this game. I love it. That's why I score it a solid 7.
This is what the fans want to know, and what I wanted to know. 7, okay. So, good. 7's good. You know, it's, again, I think all the things you said make sense. If you're a fan of point and click adventure games, you like NCIS, you'll enjoy this game. Yeah.
I really enjoyed this game. I beat it. I would score it higher if, again, they would let me fail at the gun battles, right? If it was an option to fail, right? Like, you can't fail. I didn't just sit there and just let them shoot me to see what happens.
Right.
But because it tells you to duck, it tells you to click the duck. They could have took that part out, right? I understand why they put the puzzles in it. The matching puzzles for the bomb or the hacking is the same thing. Because they wanted to switch it up and do something different. The dialogue matches the TV show. I wish it had voice acting. I really do. That's why I'm anxious to really play the
360 version.
Yeah. I do wish they treated it like 4 separate episodes. I mean, they do say it's like 4 separate episodes, but I wish they treated it like that with the intro scene and everything. That would have been awesome and brought more to it. And the best part about it is investigating the crime scenes. And one last thing, they do switch it up to where you do have to take pictures, and they use the gyro part of the controller to where you have to line it up with where you have to aim and take 3 pictures of different things. So I thought that was pretty cool too. So again, it is a simple game. It'll take you, if you actually read the dialogue and catch people in lies, you can get it done in 5 hours. But if you're like me, and sometimes I'm like, I didn't catch something, and they do have extra things in each crime scene that you can find that aren't relevant to the crime, which I was trying to find. I'll say altogether about between 5 and 7 hours if you're trying to do everything. If you're trying to take it all in.
Right.
So if you want to get this game complete, Lukey has it for $33.97.
Nice. All right. I'm surprised it's so high. That's crazy.
So, Dave, tell me all about WCW Mayhem, because I'm actually interested. I'm a big wrestling fan, and Mayhem is a game I do own but never played.
Oh, we're taking it to the mat, Dan. All right, we're going in the squared circle. All right. Now, I will preface this by saying that I am less familiar with the WCW wrestling franchise and that whole network and Eric Bischoff's thing and TNT and all that. So I was more of a WWF guy, if anything. So some of my knowledge, there will be some gaps in some of my knowledge. Feel free to jump in with anything if you want to correct the record on it. But I'm going to do my best because I did definitely put this game through the paces. And I guess we can start off with some of the background info, right? It came out on N64, PlayStation, and the Game Boy Color. The Game Boy Color came a little later, so the N64 PlayStation versions came out September 23rd, 1999 in America, and September 24th, the next day, in Europe. I don't believe this ever came out in Japan, which kind of makes sense, because they, not that wrestling isn't big in Japan, but it was made by, I guess, an American studio, published by an American company, so, it kind of makes sense. The Game Boy Color version came out almost a year later, May 5th, 2000, and August 3rd, 2000 in Europe. It's a similar game in that it's wrestling, but it's different. Kind of in the way that the NCIS games are different, where it's kind of just a pared down version of it, right? It doesn't have as many characters, obviously. You got a limited color palette. It's not in full 3D. It's, a 2D thing that you kind of move around the ring in. So that was kind of interesting. Kodiak Interactive did the console versions, and 2N Productions did the Game Boy Color version. Obviously, it's a wrestling game, and I played it on the PS1, via the PS2 backward compatibility, which was kind of nice. And I didn't know about Kodiak Interactive. I looked them up. They did about 5 games. One of those is WCW Backstage Assault, which I believe was the sequel to WCW Mayhem, and the final version, it was not good. And
that's what I hear.
Wasn't necessarily their final game. They did a couple of Disney games, I think. They did Disney Pixar's Monsters and Circus Maximus Chariot Wars, if you remember those games. They came out on the PS2, Xbox, and PS2 and PS3. Where they did those the Monsters.
Those don't ring a bell.
Yeah,
I've never heard of those.
There's a reason for that, Dan. So sadly, Kodiak is out of business. Funny enough. But yeah, this was, there's some real kind of interesting backstory to this, right? Because this was during the height of the Monday Night Wars, the WCW franchise, versus the then WWF franchise, which is now WWE. They lost that lawsuit to the World Wildlife Federation, so they had to change their name, right? This was still WWF Attitude Era, and this was the height of WCW, I think, right? And WCW was kind of killing it in the ratings game. Is that
what year did this come out?
Well, it came out in '99.
No, they were going down.
This was on the downfall. Okay.
This was on a down. Yeah, this was on a downside because at this point, Stone Cold and The Rock were skyrocketing in '99. So yeah, no. So
okay.
The NWO at this point has split into NWO Hollywood and NWO Wolfpack. And it was losing its luster at that point.
They do reference that in this game. We'll get into the different factions in just a little bit. I'm interested to go into that. But yeah, this was the last WCW game that THQ would publish. And that's actually very significant because at this time, the WWF ended its 12-year contract with Acclaim, who did all the Genesis and Super Nintendo games. They did the the I think critically underrated arcade game, the WWF was it Arcade Challenge or something like that? I think the real kind of arcadey wrestling game, which also came to home consoles. And they picked up THQ as the developer for the SmackDown series. So I think just a year later, they did SmackDown and SmackDown 2 on the PlayStation 1. And that SmackDown series has been taken over. THQ is no longer at the helm in terms of publishing. It's now under 2K, but it shares the same lineage as the new 2K wrestling games. And it's funny because the WCW didn't want to share the publishers. So when WWF picked up THQ, the WCW dropped them as a license. And I think there was the one other WCW game, I think, before they got bought up by the WWF, and McMahon took over his reign.
I didn't know they didn't want to be. They didn't want to have the same publisher. I didn't know that. That's insane. That's insane.
Which, like it kind of makes sense because I mean you're working for the competition, right? So there's kind of there's a little bit of conflict, maybe, right? Like, and there could be, and I wouldn't put this past McMahon to say, hey, we'll give you a little bit extra cash if you make our game better than the WCW version,
To be honest, I don't know if Vince. To be honest, I don't know if Vince really cared about video games back in those days, at least.
Maybe not.
Vince doesn't. He signs off on things, but he doesn't make the final decision on every little thing. He does have
for sure.
He does. The office at Stanford took care of that stuff.
Right.
Still take care of that stuff
right.
to this day. But I think it's interesting that a game publisher that's been so successful for like WCW.
Yeah.
Right, because you remember when they had when WWF Attitude came out, and it was like WCW versus NWO, and then you had WWF Attitude. You really wanted to like WWF Attitude. It was okay, but it wasn't better than WCW versus the World.
No,
right?
Those were classics.
So,
that whole Aki series was amazing.
Yeah,
and it's funny you mentioned those series of games because they were in talks to do Mayhem 2, which was going to bring Aki on board as their new developer and bring in the Aki wrestling system, which everyone lauds and loves. But it was canceled after the acquisition, right after WWF took over WCW. WWF canceled the Mayhem game, which makes sense because they essentially brought all the wrestlers under the WWF banner. So now we got Hogan back and, Macho Man and like everybody. We got DDP, we got Booker T. Everybody was coming in wrestling under the WWF banner and, being put into the appropriate, cruiserweight, heavyweight, whatever else, international and all that. So,
well, that would be a year later. Those guys
had
guaranteed contracts, except for DDP. He did come in earlier.
He did.
With that terrible invasion. Yeah. And Booker T did come in because I don't think his contract was as big, so they did take him up. But like Hogan, Nash, Paul, rest in peace. Those guys, Goldberg, they didn't come in until like a year later after their contract expired.
Is that when they bought the tank into the arena? Was that whole?
That was a year later, so that would be this year. That would be around this time.
Okay.
When they brought the tank in. Actually, no. So the tank came in around 98, late 98.
Right. And that had all the NWO guys on it, was that right?
No.
Oh, okay.
So that was DX that came to W. They were in the same, they were similar, same state, not far from each other. They were doing Nitro and Raw, and they brought the tank in with DX, and they tried to go into WCW, and they closed the doors. And that was literally, I want to say, like, I remember watching it live as a teenager. I was like, this is awesome. Like, wow. Like, and till this day, the WCW guys say, you should have let them in. That'd have been great TV. We have and then we could film them and put them on our TV. Like, that would have been awesome.
Right.
But, Eric Bischoff made the mistake and said, close the doors, ignore them, shut them out. And it made great WWF TV. It was like we were invading them and they were running.
Yep. They're like, no, don't come in. They're playing the defensive mode, and wow, I thought that's crazy. That's crazy. So
that was in '98.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a very, very interesting time for wrestling. Very interesting time for wrestling games, right? We're now firmly in the 3D realm. We're not doing, 2D sprite-based wrestlers anymore. Although there still was some like Fire Pro stuff. Still to this day, Fire Pro is kind of interesting. But I think definitely on the American side, and most of the wrestling games were moving towards 3D arenas, 3D characters, and eventually 3D crowds. That wouldn't come till a little bit later. But to get into some of the meat of this game, it is very much a wrestling game, but it doesn't have a story mode, which I was a little bit surprised about, but I guess it was kind of a little bit early for that. It was a little more kind of pick up and play, single match type stuff, or you could set up like a small tournament, or you could do like a Royal Rumble, or the WCW's equivalent of like a Royal Rumble. You get a bunch of guys in the ring and you try and fling them out type thing. So it was
just a battle royal.
Battle royale. So basically the way that the progression works in the game, if you want to play like the single player mode, they call it Quest for the Best. And you basically take a character, either a created character or one of the 50 some odd wrestlers that are in the game, and you kind of bring them up the ranks. So you start in the bottom and you fight for the TV belt. And then that's kind of like the lowest rung belt. Then you kind of work your way up depending on what class you are, right? If you're a cruiserweight, you do go through, I think, one or two different belt types till you get to like the world champion one or whatever, but you go through all the different things. And that's like kind of interesting, right? As you work your way up, there's about 6 matches, right? There's 5 matches to the top, and then you got to fight the reigning champ, and then you keep it moving. I'm assuming that they're based off whatever the current title holders were at the time, but that I don't know. I wasn't really too familiar with that. But it is like kind of interesting. You drop in rank every time you lose a match until you get down to the bottom, and then you have to go work your way up again. It's a little light, to be honest, and I think it's a little bit repetitive because the only real things that kind of change are the opponent that you fight, and every now and again, maybe you'll get like some sort of side character to come in and either be on your side or fight against you. And, that happened like once or twice. Someone kind of run out from backstage, jump in the ring, and now it's like a 2-on-1 combat. So, it's like, okay, there was an attempt, there was an attempt made, definitely different than the upcoming SmackDown games, which had a story from the beginning, a very fleshed out story. You would kind of go through, you'd have different options, you could choose different character paths. Like there was a little bit more going on there, but yeah, in terms of the gameplay, right, this is real kind of the meat and potatoes of it. It's, I guess I want to go over this in a couple different parts, right? So there's the 4 face buttons and the 4 trigger buttons up top, right? L1, L2, R1, R2, square, circle, triangle, and the X or cross button if you're in Europe. And square is to grapple, right? So you hit square, you grapple up, and then once you do that, every button can do a different type of grappling maneuver, right? So every button turns into a grapple move. You can do a direction and the grapple to do different types of moves. You can just hit the grapple button in the neutral state and it'll do a move. So there is a lot of variety there, although ultimately it doesn't really seem like it because I ended up doing a lot of the same moves over and over again. You do also have like strikes, right? There's a dedicated strike button or punch button. There's a dedicated kick button and a dedicated like special punch, kick, or strike button, which sometimes turns into like a grapple type situation. So there's a little bit of variety there. You could do the standard block, the taunt. You can do the run, and if there's multiple characters in the arena, you can switch your focus. So you can really only attack one person at a time, which I think still stands to this day in the wrestling games. I think you can kind of do some combo maneuvers maybe against two people in some of the later wrestling games, but typically you're focused on one dude. So when you grapple, you're grappling that guy. Yeah, makes it easy to figure out who your focus is. So that's all pretty standard, right? It's not very much not like the Aki system, where you kind of get into the grapple, and then there was kind of these different windows to do the different maneuvers. There was the light grapple moves and the heavy grapple moves, which came in some of the later ones. There's a lot more variety in there, I think. There's a lot more variety in the characters and the characters' movesets. I felt like a lot of the characters shared a lot of the same moves, and I feel like that had to have been different with the wrestlers in the ring, right? I'm sure there was a lot more variety. It seems like this game didn't have all of the movesets for all of the characters, so they kind of had to fudge some. But I can't necessarily say for certain. You can do like rope maneuvers. You can do the Irish whips. You can get outside of the ring. There are weapons. You can play with weapons on or off. They are generally just inside the ring or outside the ring. I don't think there was any like fishing underneath the mat to try and find like hidden weapons. I don't think they had any of that. But there is backstage. So every time you play a match, you always start in the ring. You can move to a backstage. You can select what type of backstage it is, but that's the only one you get. There's no like interconnected backstage like some of the later SmackDown games had, which was kind of cool. I thought there'd be something like that, but it's just a different area. Usually some weapons in there, and it's just like a square that has different theming. You can be in the control room or like the first aid hospital area or whatever, but you only get one. So that was a little disappointing, but understandable, I guess, given the time period. There are reversals. I wasn't necessarily sure how to pull them off, or I never really figured out the timing window. I could do them every now and again, but it is a single button press if you get into a grapple, right? And you just hit the L1, I think, and then you can do a reversal. And it will tell you on screen, reversal. It tells you when you do certain things or when a character's stunned. So there is some visual feedback, because you didn't get a lot with the characters, right? They were pretty simple polygons, and it was kind of hard to tell, like, if they were in a staggered state, so they would let you know, oh, you're staggered, right? Beyond the general kind of like, oh, your character takes a while to get up, or, he's obviously losing a little bit of health or whatever it is, so you did get some indicators, but not a lot. And one thing that this game shows you is there's the momentum meter at the bottom, which some games would have, and it's essential to winning a match, right? I found out very quickly that if you beat up on a guy for a while and then you try and pin him, if the momentum is not swung in your favor, you're not going to pin him. You get a 2 count, and they're gonna break out of it. Always. And the same kind of goes with the submission moves. You can wear him down. If you don't have the momentum, you're not going to get the pin. So. And that was like kind of annoying, because I would do like a lot of damage, right? I was doing the backdrops and the slams and the backbreakers, right? I was doing the special moves, and I'd go, okay, obviously this guy is being worn down. You can see it takes a while to get up, right? He's moving a little bit slower in the ring. Still couldn't pin him. So, like, I get the momentum meter, and I think it's like kind of cool, but the execution was not quite there.
Okay. No, that makes okay.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense, because in wrestling, for you, it's not like in wrestling. It's all about the finishing move, right?
Yeah.
So you can kick somebody a million times and get their energy down, but if they have momentum, they can get back up and Hulk up like Hulk Hogan used to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you really need to break their spirit more so than their health.
Yeah. And I think you're right, because the only way to do a special move is to swing the momentum maximum to your side, and then if you're in the right position to do a special move, you can hit like I think L1 or R1, and it'll do their special. So that's probably what they wanted you to do, but you essentially would have to do that every single match, and it takes a while to get there, right? And like one good kick or one good spinning back fist will kill your momentum. Like, instantly it goes, like, all the way down. So, yeah, I think it could use a little bit more work, which, you know, was a little bit upsetting. Like I wanted to like it a lot more than I did because it felt like there was a lot of potential there. It wasn't terrible. I mean, it certainly was there was a solid foundation there, but I think it could have used some tweaks. Now, in terms of the different match types, you do get a little bit of variety, but it's not a lot. You know, there's a single, tag team, the four ways, something they call a triangle, which I think is just a three-way match. There's like handicap matches. You can do 2-on-1 in either direction. And you can customize things, right? You want to turn off the rope break, that's an option. If you want weapons on, you can do that. Depending on the match, you can choose the backstage that you can go to, and you can change the theming, right? If you want like the Halloween Havoc, or you want World War III, or, you know, whatever. They have, I believe they have all of the different like special events that the WCW had going on, and they have the appropriate theming, right? They'll like, you know, theme the entrance around that, and obviously they'll have the logo on the mat, right? So that's like kind of cool that they added all that stuff in there. And some of that stuff is unlockable, just like the characters, just like the backstages. They want you to go through the single player or the quest for the best with the different characters, and then each character would have a different type of unlock. Either they would unlock another character, they would unlock a backstage, or they would unlock an event theme, right? So some of those were hidden. But the good news is, because you know as well as I do, this was still in the era of cheat codes. So if you go online, you can find all of the cheat codes. And they even have a little cheat code selection from the main menu. So they want you to go out and find them and buy the magazines, and, you know, here's the cheat code to get all the wrestlers, here's the cheat code to get whatever, and you can unlock everything that way with just a couple of cheat codes. And you can do up to 3 cheat codes at a time, so if you just want to gang them together and unlock everything, which I did eventually, because I'm not going to go through and get everybody, because that would have been very tedious. They let you do that, right? And it was like pretty easy, and then I started messing around with some of the stuff. So that was kind of cool. One thing I will say about the overall presentation and the UI and the UX, the way they break down the character selections is by the different factions. So they do have like the NWO, but also the NWO Wolfpack, and they have like the Cruiserweight, and they have like so then there's like 6 or 7 different factions that the characters are in. So if you don't know, like if you know I want to play as, I don't know, Scott Steiner or Booker T or Cannon or whatever, right? You have to know what faction they're under, right? If you're trying to find Hogan and you're looking through the main list, he won't be there because he's going to be under the NWO section, right? So that was kind of annoying, and I think unneeded. They should have just had an entire roster and then had like a little box on the right that told you a little bit about them, what their weight class was, what their faction was, you know, what their fighting style was, maybe. Yeah, it definitely it was definitely a learning experience in terms of like, you know, how do we present this information? And when you look at the WWE games now and their presentation, very clean, right? Usually on a white background, and you just get a big list of characters. You can usually like sort them or do some sort of searching, right? They've really come a long way with that. So, yeah, definitely not the best trying to find a character. But I guess if you're into wrestling, you would know who's under what, you know. You would know where the unmasked Rey Mysterio is, and you wouldn't have to spend 5 minutes trying to find out where he was. So, in terms of the graphics, pretty good. I was actually pretty surprised by how well they look. Now, characters are fully 3D, the arenas are fully 3D, but everything else is essentially 2D. Even the weapon pickups are like just a flat polygon, more or less, with like a sprite texture over the top. The crowd is a flat polygon with sprite textures over the front, and all of the decorations and all of the special effects for the intros and the arenas are flat 2D sprites. And you can definitely tell. They are super pixelated. But yeah. And then I guess the other thing to mention, in terms of the sound, it's straight up 1990s butt rock. So if you're into that kind of thing, cool. I believe they do have all of the intro theme songs in there. I don't think this was the era where they were licensing out different bands. Like I know like AC/DC, and I think Marilyn Manson was like pegged. Like he did some music for, I think, like one of the guys in the WWF or whatever. So they had licensing that would fall in and out of favor. You know, they go, well, this guy's not hot anymore, or he's got a different theme song or whatever. You know, licenses go in and out. So I think there wasn't any issues.
Well, I tell you, so WCW at the time was owned by Turner. Right. Turner did own like a music publishing company where they could use a lot of the music. Like DDP's theme song was, you know what, Hulk Hogan. Oh, Nirvana. DDP's theme song was Nirvana's one of Nirvana's most popular songs.
Oh,
right?
Shoot.
You know, Hulk Hogan, he used Jimi Hendrix, right?
Oh, that's right.
So when they got bought by WWF, they had to have a version of that or a completely different song because WWF didn't own the right to that music. So back in those days, they didn't have to really pay like a licensing fee, or maybe I don't know how it works, but it was all internal because Turner owned everything. Right.
It's a vertical integration in that case. Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen. I played as a handful of fighters. Pretty sure I played as DDP once or twice because I mean DDP's the man. And I met him once too at one of the cons we were at. I think it may have been Comic-Con, and he was super nice. So big fan of that guy, but I'll have to go back and take a listen and see, because I didn't notice any licensed music like that. So maybe they kind of switched some things around and changed it up. I'm not too sure, but I'll have to go back. Yeah. And
I love the theme songs. I love those theme songs.
Yeah. It's pretty solid. And there's over like 50 some odd wrestlers, right? And they're all like legit. There's a handful of like funny inclusions, like you can play as Mean Gene Okerlund, right? Because he moved over to the WCW, and you know he's got some weird ass moveset or whatever, and he's wearing his kind of 3-piece suit type situation. So, but most of them are like legit. You know, they're all the stable of wrestlers, or the hottest stable of wrestlers, more or less at the time. I didn't see too many omissions from the list at the time. Maybe like Perry Saturn. Maybe I don't know if I necessarily noticed him in there. There may have been a couple that were in the WCW games on the N64 that weren't in this one, but they got it mostly covered, I think. And you get about maybe 30 or 40 to begin with, and then you unlock the other, I guess maybe 10 or 15 or so through the single player mode. So it gives you a little bit of a sense of progression in that. And I'll say the best thing about the game is the overall experience. I don't think any one thing about this game excels necessarily, but they have a weird intro where they're like bringing Goldberg to life. There's this whole 3D animation where they're building Goldberg in a lab, and he breaks out of the lab and runs into the wrestling ring and kind of hulks out. That's like kind of interesting. All of the other wrestlers are here, and their movesets and their likenesses as best they could do for the PS1. I guess most. I'll have to go back and see if all of the music is period accurate, but I know they mentioned that the entrances are accurate. They did their best given the PS1 graphics and those like kind of limitations. So it was pretty good. You're looking for a wrestling experience, you're looking for the WCW brand, like here it is, right? You're definitely going to find your guy in there. You'll be able to play with them. You can hook up a second controller and play with them. I don't know if it supported more than 2. I don't know if it had multi-tap support. I have to take a look. But yeah, I mean it's pretty solid for what it is. I think it's comparable. I was trying to look back at some of the other wrestling games at the time, like the Acclaim games or the Aki games that were on N64, and the upcoming SmackDown games, and how they kind of compared. And I feel like it had Had a lot of the stuff that the other games had, if not a little bit more in certain areas. So pretty decent. And the worst part is the match flow. I thought it was a little bit sluggish. You know, you really kind of have to swing the momentum meter, do your finisher, and then go for the pin. Which, I mean, kind of emulates how the matches go, more or less, right? That's usually the thing, right? You want to get a thing going, you want to get the crowd on your side, drop the finisher, and then pin. So, I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, but it wasn't necessarily the best. I think some of the other wrestling games did it a little bit better. And if I had to recommend this game, I'd say, like, sure, but there's better offerings around the same time. I would probably say play the N64 ones, play WCW versus NWO Revenge, or play WrestleMania 2000 or No Mercy. Those are much better experiences, I think, and I think they have better mechanics to them. They're different, for sure, but you're going to get the WCW license with most of those games. Or, you know, if you don't mind the license and you just want to play a wrestling game, you can go with the WWF ones, or play the upcoming SmackDown games. I think they're a better experience. They're a better package, and they definitely look a little bit better. Yeah. So, in terms of reviews, it was a little hard to find reviews. There was no Metacritic at this time. This was a couple years before Metacritic, so we didn't get all of that. We don't get an aggregate score, but I was able to find some reviews. The best review comes from Game Informer, which they gave it an 8 out of 10, which is a bit on the high end. Most of the reviews were kind of in the, you know, high 5 to low 7 range. And the worst of the bunch came from EGM, which gave it a 5.25 out of 10, which I think is a little bit low. If I had to give this game a rating, I'd give it a solid 6. It's pretty decent.
Wow. Okay.
Not bad, but there's definitely better stuff around that time, so I'll say that. And if you want to get this game, you can get it complete. It is on sale right now from Lukey Games for $6.47, down from the $19.99 regular retail price on their website. So
on the PS2.
On the PlayStation 1.
PS1.
On the PS1, yeah. Not sure about the N64. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more because it's a cartridge game, and N64 didn't really have the numbers that the PlayStation did in terms of overall console sales, so you're likely to find a bit more money.
You could get it for $9 loose.
Okay.
I mean, you know,
yeah, not bad.
It's more common to get it's more common to get an N64 game loose.
Right, because they have the cardboard packaging in there, yeah.
Yeah. And funny enough, the Game Boy Color version is more expensive than both of them combined. It's $25.
Yeah. I don't know how well it sold, per se, but...
And I'm sure it's a totally different game because it was a Game Boy. It was a Game Boy Color game.
Well, yeah, I mean, like in terms of the overall presentation and the graphics and all that, yeah, it's definitely gonna be a bit different, for sure.
I mean, for all we know, it could be a side-scrolling.
Oh,
it could be
God.
a
Side-scrolling beat-em-up game, yeah.
Yeah, it could be a side-scrolling beat-em-up game for all we know.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Well, okay. On that note, that is episode 33 in the books, folks. And we want to thank you guys for listening to the show, for liking, commenting, doing all the good stuff that you guys do. If you want to interact with us, and we know that you do, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rated G for Gamers. So, please listen, like, rate, review, and subscribe. And as always,
keep gaming.